It was past midnight when the knock came, soft almost like the wind, but just loud enough to wake him. Jaren sat up on his old couch, blinking at the glowing numbers on the wall. 0:03 a.m.? He rubbed his eyes and listened again. Another knock, gentle but firm. Someone was outside his small metal apartment in Galactic Sector 12. And that was never good news. Not at this hour. Not in this part of the city. He stood slowly, grabbing a tool wrench from the floor just in case. When he opened the door, cold air rushed in along with a strange silence. And there she stood, a girl, young. Maybe 20, maybe less. Her skin was pale lavender, glowing faintly under the hallway light. She wore a torn coat too big for her frame, and her silver hair was messy, damp from the rain. Her eyes were wide, glowing softly, but full of something heavy, fear, maybe shame. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice thin and broken. "I don't have anywhere to go." Jaren didn't answer. He looked at her bag, small and ripped, barely holding together. Then he looked at her feet, bare, bleeding from sharp gravel and the freezing wet concrete. "You got the wrong door," he said quietly, about to close it, but then she said something strange. "I can't pay rent," she said, "but I'll do what a man loves most. And I'll fold your laundry." Jaren froze. What kind of offer was that? What kind of girl stands barefoot in the cold saying something like that like it's normal? The girl kept her head down, not moving, not blinking. Jaren sighed, stepped aside, and opened the door wider. "One night," he muttered. "Just one." She stepped in without a word. Bowing her head low, he noticed how she didn't make a sound. Even though her legs were trembling, she sat near the heater and hugged her arms around herself. The room was small, only one couch, a pile of laundry in the corner, a dirty dish rack, and a flickering light panel overhead still. She looked at it all like it was a palace. "You hungry?" Jaren asked, walking toward the storage unit. "No," she said fast, then added, "unless you want me to be." Jaren turned and looked at her, confused. "What does that mean?" She flinched. "I mean, I'll do what you say. I'm here to serve, right?" Jaren blinked. "No, you're here because you were freezing in the hallway." She looked surprised, even scared at his tone. "I'm sorry," she said quickly, standing up. "I'll fold the clothes. Please let me stay." She walked over to the pile of clothes and dropped to her knees. She started folding them neatly, one by one, her fingers moving fast, trained. Jaren didn't stop her. He just watched, feeling uneasy. Something was wrong, very wrong. No normal girl folds clothes like a machine, especially not while her hands shake from cold. After a while, he handed her a blanket. "Sleep on the couch," he said. "I'll take the floor." She shook her head hard. "No, I can't. I'm not allowed to sleep higher than the owner." "What?" She looked up at him, scared again. "That's the rule, Master," she whispered. "Don't call me that," Jaren said, voice firm. "And there are no rules here, just lie down and sleep." She hesitated, then slowly curled up on the floor, using the blanket as a shield, not warmth. Jaren lay awake most of the night. The rain hit the window softly, but the silence inside was loud every now and then. He looked at the girl. She didn't move, didn't breathe loudly, didn't even snore, just lay there still, like someone who had learned to disappear when no one wanted her. In the morning, he woke up to the smell of hot food. The girl was in the kitchen, quietly cooking from his leftover packs. She had cleaned the dishes, folded every cloth in the room, and repaired a broken chair with wire. When he walked in, she turned and bowed her head. "Thank you for letting me stay, Master." Jaren sighed. "Stop calling me that." "Yes, of course," she said, bowing again. "Forgive me." As he sat down to eat, he asked gently, "What's your name?" She paused, then whispered, "I don't know anymore." That was when Jaren realized this girl wasn't just poor or lost. She had been owned, trained, and broken, and whoever had her before was probably still looking for her. Outside, a drone flew past the window. The girl froze, eyes locked on it, her fingers tightening around the folded laundry. Jaren noticed he didn't know who she really was, or what trouble she brought, but one thing was clear. This wasn't just about rent or laundry or kindness. Something deeper had entered his life, and it came knocking at midnight. The next morning, Jaren found her standing in the corner of the kitchen, folding his already folded clothes again. She had not slept. Her eyes were tired, but she kept working like it was the only thing she knew. "Did you sleep at all?" he asked, rubbing his neck. She smiled softly. "No, Master." He sighed again. "Don't call me that." "Yes, sir." she said, correcting herself slowly, unsure. Jaren walked to the sink and poured himself some water, watching her from the corner of his eye. This wasn't normal. Not even close. He handed her a protein bar, but she only stared at it. Eat, he said. She nodded quickly, peeled the wrapper, and took the tiniest bite possible, like she was scared of finishing it too fast. Do you always eat like that? I don't want to take too much, she replied. I don't want to be sent away. Jaren leaned against the counter, thinking hard he couldn't send her back out. Not with those marks on her wrists and that fear in her voice. But he couldn't ignore the risk either. He decided to set some rules. Real rules, not the ones she had been living by. Listen, he said calmly. If you're going to stay here, we need some rules. She froze, looking nervous again. I will follow anything. Anything at all. Rule 1, he said. You sleep on the couch, not the floor. But no arguments, he said. You're not a servant, and you're not less than me. She looked like she wanted to cry, but she just nodded. Rule 2, he added. You eat proper food and you eat with me. She blinked. Even if I didn't earn it that day? Jaren looked her straight in the eyes. You're not a tool. You don't have to earn food. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came. Rule 3, Jaren continued. No calling me master or acting like I own you. You saved me, she whispered. Doesn't that mean you own me now? No, Jaren said firmly. That's not how things work here. She lowered her eyes and nodded slowly, her hands gripping the fabric of her dress like she was trying to understand this new world. Last rule, Jaren said. Tell me your name. She hesitated, then looked up. I used to be called Zira, she whispered. But after the Admiral took me, they stopped calling me that. Then Zira it is, he said. You're not a number anymore, that day. Zira moved like a shadow through his small apartment. She cleaned every surface, fixed the broken heater, and even rewired the light panel. She worked fast, quiet, and never asked for anything. Jaren tried to stop her from doing too much, but she insisted she needed to stay useful. He didn't argue, not yet. He knew it would take time to undo whatever damage had been done to her. Later that evening, he found her sitting on the floor, staring at a mirror, not looking into it, but at it. Like it was dangerous. You okay? He asked, walking over. She nodded, then said, I don't recognize her. Who? The girl in the mirror, she said softly. She looks free, but she doesn't feel free. Jaren sat beside her. Not saying anything, he didn't have magic words, but he wanted her to know she wasn't alone anymore. You can stay here as long as you want, he said. Her shoulders trembled just a little. Then she turned and folded the blanket next to her, hands shaking slightly. I'll fold your laundry forever if it means I can stay, she said with a broken smile. That night, Jaren made dinner. It wasn't much, some rehydrated rice packs and spice cubes, but it was warm. He gave her half, but she tried to give some of it back. He refused, pushing the plate toward her. Zira, eat. She looked at the food like it was a treasure, and finally gave in. They sat at the tiny table together, not talking much, but for the first time, she looked peaceful, as Jaren was doing dishes. He noticed something under her sleeve, a small metal implant almost hidden near her shoulder. He didn't say anything, but his heart started to race. That wasn't standard tech, it looked military. High level, illegal to use on civilians, and definitely used for tracking. When she noticed him staring, her eyes dropped. You saw it, she said quietly. What is it? A mark, she whispered, to remind me I was owned. And does it still work? I don't know, she replied. It hasn't blinked since I escaped. Jaren made a note in his mind. He had to get it removed, or at least disabled, but not tonight, that night. She finally lay on the couch. She didn't argue, but she still clutched the blanket like it might be taken away. Jaren watched her from the floor. She looked small, but somehow stronger than before. He didn't know how long she would stay, or if someone dangerous was still searching for her. But one thing was sure, he had made a rule, and he would stick to it. Zira was no longer alone. The next morning was too quiet. Jaren woke to the smell of something sweet, something he hadn't tasted in years. He walked into the kitchen and found Zira kneeling on the floor. She was heating up a rare earth spice packet he didn't even remember buying. Beside her, the floor was spotless, the metal tiles polished like new. She turned and smiled. Good morning, sir. He gave her a tired look. Zira, just Jaren is fine. Yes, Jaren, she said slowly, like she was still trying to believe it was allowed. He sat down and looked around the room. His old apartment suddenly felt warmer, neater, even a little alive, but something was off. Zira had cleaned everything, even things that didn't need it. The vents, the wiring panels, the pipe seals, all scrubbed like she was trying to erase something. Zira, he asked, why are you cleaning so much? She hesitated, then looked down. When you stay useful, she whispered. People don't throw you away. Jaren felt a cold knot form in his chest. She wasn't just cleaning. She was fighting for her place, terrified of being unwanted. But before he could answer, a sharp knock hit the door. 3 short taps. Fast like a code, Zira froze. The spice packet slipped from her hand and spilled onto the floor. Her breathing stopped. Her eyes locked on the door. Don't open it, she whispered. Please, please don't open it. Jaren stood slowly, walking toward the door without making a sound. He looked through the security cam. An alien in silver armor stood outside. Tall, sharp features, high rank. His uniform carried the symbol of the Outer Fleet, and his eyes scanned the hallway like a hunter. The officer didn't knock again. He just placed a small black scanner on the wall, then walked away. Zira collapsed to her knees, holding her stomach like she had been punched. It's him, she whispered. It's one of the Admiral's men. You're sure? Jaren asked, already sealing the window locks. She nodded quickly. They track by heat trails, sound prints, and... Hey, she pulled back her sleeve and showed the implant again. It's a beacon when activated, she said. They can sniff it from light years away if they want. Jaren looked at the device carefully. It wasn't blinking, but it wasn't dead either. He needed tools, real ones, not just pliers and solder wire. I know a guy, he muttered. He might be able to help. Zira didn't ask who or where. She just kept folding the blanket on the couch. Over and over again. Why do you always fold things? He asked. It's the only thing I could do without being hurt, she said softly. Folding was safe. That night, Jaren visited his old friend, a fixer named Clem who dealt in stolen tech and blackout tools. Clem raised an eyebrow when Jaren mentioned the implant. You're harboring a fleet girl? He hissed. Are you insane? She's not with them anymore, Jaren said. She's scared, broken, and being hunted. Clem sighed, digging through his shelves. He handed Jaren a small device no bigger than a coin. Stick this near the implant, press twice, and it should fry the signal, but only once. Side effects? Pain, Clem replied, maybe blackout, maybe memory loss, maybe death, depending on how deep it's wired. Jaren didn't sleep that night. He stared at the device for hours, thinking of Zira, the way she flinched at shadows, the way she folded laundry like it was her lifeline, the way she whispered thank you after every meal. Like no one had ever fed her kindly before. In the morning, he told her the truth. I can disable the tracker, he said, but it might hurt. She didn't even pause. If I die, she whispered, at least I'll die free. They placed the device on her shoulder and she bit down on a towel. Jaren pressed the button once, nothing. He pressed again, and suddenly Zira screamed, short, sharp, then collapsed. Her body shook, sparks flew from her implant, and smoke rose from her skin. Jaren grabbed her, heart pounding. Then she went limp, eyes closed, body still. He thought he had lost her. He held her close, whispering her name again and again. Zira, please, wake up. Then her hand twitched, her lips moved slightly. Jaren, she whispered, did it work? He exhaled slowly, hugging her tighter. It worked, he said. You're free now. Later that day, she sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, holding a warm cup. The mark on her shoulder was burned, but the blinking light was gone. She stared at the wall, silent. Jaren sat beside her and said nothing. Finally, she spoke. I feel empty, she said. Like something left me. That's not a bad thing, Jaren replied. Sometimes we have to lose the chains to feel the wind. Zira looked at him, and for the first time, she didn't smile because she had to. She smiled because she wanted to. For the first time since she arrived, Zira slept soundly, no folding, no flinching, no waking up in panic, just quiet breathing under the blanket. Her hair spread out like silver threads on the pillow. Jaren watched from the kitchen, a cup of reheat coffee in his hand. He didn't say a word, he just stood still, grateful that, for now, she looked like a real girl, not a runaway ghost. But peace never lasted long in Sector 12. By noon, the hum of a warship echoed above the district. Not just any ship, but a fleet enforcer. The kind sent only for high-value targets. Jaren ran to the window. Careful to stay low, the ship hovered slow. Scanning rooftops with violet light, Zira woke up with a gasp, as if she could feel it in her bones. "They're here," she whispered. "They know I'm still alive." "No way," Jaren said. "I fried the signal." Zira shook her head, eyes wide. "The Admiral never gives up. He has more than trackers, he has seers, and if I was marked as his, they won't stop until I'm returned or destroyed." The words "returned or destroyed" made Jaren's jaw tighten. He slammed the window shut and pulled down the metal screen. "We need to disappear," he said. Fast, Zira began gathering things, but she was slow, her body still sore from the implant burn. Jaren packed a small bag, credits, energy rations, black market IDs he hadn't touched in years. They had 5 minutes before a street scan began. As they headed for the back door, Zira stopped and looked around the room one last time. She bent down, picked up the blanket she always folded, and folded it again, slowly, perfectly. Then she placed it on the couch like a farewell gift. Jaren noticed but didn't speak. He understood what that fold meant. She wasn't planning to come back. They ran down rusted alleyways, past broken neon signs and faded posters. Drones buzzed overhead, scanning faces and movement signatures. Jaren kept his arm around her, leading her through shadowed tunnels only old smugglers knew. They stopped in a hidden underbasement, cold, silent, forgotten by city maps. "This used to be a laundry unit," Jaren said, pointing to the dusty machines. Zira looked around with a strange expression. "I remember this place," she said quietly. "I was brought here once. For cleaning training." "Cleaning training," she nodded. "They made us practice folding towels for 3 days without water or food. If we fainted, they called us weak." Jaren's fists clenched. But Zira reached out and gently touched his hand. "I'm not there anymore," she said. "I'm here with you." Suddenly, a loud rumble shook the floor. The warship was right above them now, its weight pressing on the air like a mountain. From the wall speaker came a voice, cold, firm, and terrifying. "This is Admiral Kale of the Outer Fleet," it boomed. "A valuable asset has gone missing. Harboring her is a criminal act." Zira's face went pale, her lips trembling. "They know," she whispered. "They're sending ground units." Jaren looked around the room, then saw an old maintenance shaft barely wide enough for one person. "Go," he said, pointing to it. Zira shook her head. "I won't leave you." "I'm not staying here to die," he said. "I've got another way out, just go." She stared at him, her eyes filling with tears. "Promise me you'll follow." "I will," he lied, but smiled. She crawled inside and Jaren sealed the hatch behind her. Moments later, soldiers burst in, 6 of them, armored, armed, and scanning fast. Jaren stood alone, hands up, no sign of Zira in sight. "You're not the target," one said, scanning his ID. "Then leave me the hell alone," Jaren growled. The lead soldier hesitated, then turned. "Search continues, she's not here," he said, and the group marched out. Jaren waited 5 full minutes before unlocking the hatch. Zira stumbled out, covered in dust, coughing. He caught her as she fell. "You lied," she said. Half smiling, half crying. "Just a little," he replied. "Had to buy time," she laughed. "Weak but real. You're a bad liar, Jaren." "Yeah, but a decent laundry folder," he joked. And she laughed again. They didn't go home that night. They found shelter in an old delivery truck buried in a junkyard. Zira curled up in the back while Jaren watched the skies through a broken mirror. The stars looked calm, but he knew the Admiral wasn't done. Not yet. Zira's name was still written in some dark record, marked property, and the man who once owned her wouldn't stop until she was dragged back in chains. But Jaren had made a choice now. She wasn't going back, not while he still had breath in his body. She had folded his laundry, healed his home, and now he'd protect her no matter what it cost. The rain had not stopped for 2 days. Inside the old junkyard truck, water dripped from a crack in the roof, tapping the metal floor like a slow countdown. Zira sat wrapped in a torn blanket, watching the drops fall. One by one, she didn't say much, and Jaren didn't ask. Both knew things were no longer safe. Not even for a moment the warship had left the sector. But soldiers still searched block by block. The Admiral wasn't giving up. And the apartment Jaren once called home was probably marked now. "Waiting for a raid, we can't go back," Jaren said finally. Zira nodded. "I know," but her voice was quiet. Heavy, like she had left something behind. He could see it on her face. She missed the little things. The smell of warm tea, The folded blanket on the couch, the tiny corner that made her feel like she belonged. This isn't living, she whispered. This is hiding, Jaren understood. He had been running from things in his past too, bad jobs, worse decisions, broken trust, but Zira wasn't just hiding from shame or regret. She was hiding from ownership, from being someone's property, and it was written on her skin in every careful move, in every half-smile that vanished too quickly. That night, Jaren left to find help. He knew someone deep in the black market roots, an old friend who owed him a favor. Before he left, Zira asked him one thing. If they come while you're gone and I don't fight, would that make me weak? Jaren looked her in the eyes. No, he said, but if you fight, even just by staying free, it makes you stronger than they'll ever understand. He left her with an old emergency beacon, dead signal, but it lit up red when tapped twice. If you press it, I'll know to run, he said. And I'll find you no matter what. Zira clutched it like a jewel and watched him disappear into the cold rain. She waited alone, curled in the corner of the truck, listening to every creak, every distant footstep. She didn't sleep, not really, only faded in and out of thought, remembering the Admiral's voice, the collar, the commands, the endless folding of clean clothes she never got to wear. The next morning, Jaren returned, soaking wet but alive. He carried two things, a fake ID for Zira and a burner access card to a new hiding place. It was a maintenance bunker under the city, sealed years ago after a power leak. Nobody lived there and nobody dared go near it. Perfect for vanishing. They moved that same hour, avoiding cameras, moving through sewer routes and forgotten alleys. The bunker was cold but safe, metal walls. No windows, one entrance, and a working heater. Barely. Zira looked around in silence, then set the blanket down in the corner. She folded it perfectly. Jaren smiled faintly. Home again? She nodded. If you're here. Then yes, but safety didn't last long. 3 days later, Jaren's compad buzzed. An alert from his apartment's old security grid. Intrusion detected, full interior sweep. High clearance code used. He showed the message to Zira, who didn't say a word. She just picked up the cup she had been cleaning and held it tightly. They were searching for me, she said, but they're punishing you. Jaren laughed bitterly. Wouldn't be the first time someone broke my life just to send a message. But the smile faded fast. Thing is, he added, I don't care anymore, not if it means you're still breathing. Later that night, they sat together by the flickering heater, sharing one meal pack. Zira placed 2 folded shirts beside him, even though he hadn't asked. It was her way of thanking him, not with words, but with actions that felt safe to her. Folding clothes meant order, peace, something in her control, but Jaren leaned forward and touched her hand gently. You don't have to fold things to be wanted, he said. You're enough. Zira, her eyes filled with something she hadn't shown before. Grief. Not sadness, not fear. Grief. I don't know how to be wanted, she whispered. I only know how to be useful. You don't have to earn your right to exist, he said softly. Not with me. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the hum of the heater, but then metal footsteps echoed above. Heavy, rhythmic, armored. Jaren froze, pulling her close. They're not supposed to find this place, he hissed. Zira held the red beacon in her hand, trembling, but she didn't press it. Instead, she stood up, eyes firm. If they're here for me, she said, let them come, but they won't find the same girl they owned. Jaren stared at her. This wasn't the same scared girl from the hallway anymore. This was someone stronger, someone ready. Then the footsteps stopped, only silence remained. False alarm, a patrol, a shadow passing. They didn't know, but they knew one thing. The apartment was gone, safety was a dream, and now, survival meant staying 2 steps ahead. Together. The old bunker hummed with tired energy. Pipes leaked in places. The heater buzzed and clicked like it was about to give up. But inside, the silence was peaceful, not empty. Zira was humming softly while sweeping the floor. Not because she had to, but because she wanted to for the first time in her life. She was not folding clothes to earn safety, she was just being. Jaren watched her from the corner, his hands stained with oil as he fixed a broken vent. Every time he looked at her, he saw a little more light returning to her eyes. She was still cautious, still quiet, but she smiled more now. Not forced, not broken, real smiles, small, soft, but real. That evening, they shared a can of heat-packed stew, sitting on the cold floor like it was a royal feast. Zira laughed when Jaren made a joke about how awful it tasted. Her laugh was short and surprised, like it had escaped before she could stop it. She quickly covered her mouth, shocked. "Did I just laugh?" she asked quietly. "You did," Jaren replied, grinning. "Sounded like music." Zira looked away, embarrassed but happy. "I haven't laughed since I was taken," she said. I forgot what it felt like. Jaren wanted to tell her something then. Something about how she was changing him too. How she made this cold, forgotten place feel like home. But he didn't have the words. So instead, he stood up, walked over to the table, and unfolded a wrinkled shirt she had just folded. "Hey," she said, laughing. "What are you doing?" He grinned. "Testing you." She stood up, playfully snatched it back, and folded it again, perfectly. "There," she said. Order restored, and in that small moment, something warm passed between them, unspoken but strong. The next day, Jaren brought home something unexpected, a tiny plant, green, fragile, still alive in a cracked pot. "Where did you find that?" Zira asked, surprised. "Black market," he said. "Traded my last clean boots for it," she gasped. "You didn't." "I did," he smiled. "Figured we needed something growing in here, besides just healing hearts." Zira stared at the plant like it was magic. She touched its leaves gently, her fingers shaking. "This is beautiful," she whispered. "I've never been allowed to care for something before." Jaren tilted his head. "What about yourself?" She blinked, then looked down. "I wasn't a thing worth caring for." His chest tightened at her words. "You are now," he said softly. "To me, you are." That night, a storm passed over the city, electric flashes lighting up the cracks in the bunker ceiling. Zira curled up beside the heater, her head resting on a pillow she had stitched from old rags. Jaren sat nearby, watching the lightning reflect in her eyes. She turned to him and said, "Do you know what I used to dream about?" He shook his head. "Being invisible," she said, "so no one would notice me, no one would want to own me, or hurt me." Jaren didn't speak. He just reached out slowly and placed his hand over hers. "You're not invisible anymore," he said, "and you'll never be owned again." She didn't pull away. Instead, she squeezed his hand gently. "Thank you for seeing me," she whispered. The next few days passed in a strange peace. They found routines, simple but comforting. Zira cleaned and organized, but not from fear. She chose to make the space better. Jaren cooked with what little he could find, adding spices she liked. They played old hollow games, taught each other jokes, and built a rhythm that felt like home. One morning, Jaren woke up to find her staring out the small vent window. "Something wrong?" he asked. She turned. "No, something right." "What do you mean?" "I was waiting," she said, "waiting for the fear to return, but it didn't." He walked up beside her. "Then don't wait for it." She looked at him, her voice soft but clear. "I want to stay." "You already are," he said. "And you always can." But just as warmth began to settle inside their hearts, danger came knocking again, without warning. A flashing signal lit up Jaren's comm pad. Sector-wide alert, unidentified female matching wanted profile spotted in District 9. His heart dropped. "That's near us," he said, showing her the message. Zira stared at it for a long time. "They're getting closer," she whispered. "They're still hunting," Jaren nodded slowly. "Yes, but we're not running anymore." Zira looked at him, confused. "Then what do we do?" He stood up, took her hand, and said, "We make a stand together." And in that moment, something shifted. This wasn't just survival anymore. This was protection. This was care. This was something like love. She had folded his laundry, yes, but now she had unfolded his heart too, and he wasn't going to let anyone take her away again. Not now. Not ever. The sun never reached the bunker, but that morning, something brighter than sunlight filled the air. Not light, but tension. Jaren was packing silently, checking weapons he hadn't touched in years. Zira stood across the room, folding her blanket one last time. She wasn't crying, but her eyes looked distant, like they already knew how this day would end. "They're coming, aren't they?" she asked, not looking up. Jaren nodded. The alert was too close. She finished folding the blanket and placed it gently on the chair. "I don't want to run anymore," she whispered. "But I don't want you hurt either." "You won't lose me," Jaren said, strapping on the old shoulder guard he'd kept hidden under floorboards. "I already lost too much," she replied. "I can't lose you too." He walked over and held her face in both hands. "You won't," he said again, voice firmer now. "I swear it." But even promises felt fragile that day, like thin glass in a storm. The city above was crawling with scanners and patrol bots. Jaren knew the pattern. They were tightening the net. Preparing for a final sweep? The Admiral had waited long enough. He wasn't going to send messages anymore. This time he was coming himself by noon. The outer hatch of the bunker vibrated with a soft pulse, an override frequency. Zira flinched, her instincts screaming to hide. But she stayed still. "I won't be prey anymore," she said. "If I hide now, I'll always be hiding." Jaren nodded, walked to the control panel, and flipped the main lock. "Then we stand." The hatch hissed open, and the shadows outside grew darker. First came the guards, 4 of them, tall, armored, silent. Then, from behind them stepped the Admiral, Kale, dressed in his silver and black uniform, his expression sharp like ice. He looked at Zira the way someone looks at a missing tool. Valuable, but replaceable. "So," Kale said coldly. "You've chosen filth over purpose." Zira didn't answer. Jaren stepped forward, standing between her and the soldiers. "She's not yours," he said, "not anymore." Kale raised an eyebrow. "You think you can protect her?" "I already have," Jaren replied. "Longer than you ever did." Kale gave a small nod. The soldiers raised their rifles, red dots lighting Jaren's chest. Zira grabbed his arm. "Don't," she whispered. "They'll kill you." "I don't care," he said, not looking away from Kale. "I'd rather die standing between you and them than live knowing they took you back." Kale smiled, cold and cruel. "Touching," he said, "but unnecessary." He raised a small remote and tapped a button. Zira gasped and fell to her knees, screaming. Her implant, the burned one, had reactivated. "No," Jaren yelled, catching her before she hit the ground. Kale stepped forward, smug. "Did you really think you could destroy my work with scrap tech?" he sneered. "She belongs to me, body and code." But then something unexpected happened. Zira stopped screaming, her eyes opened, bright glowing blue. The old code had triggered, but it had fused with something else. Something Jaren had given her: freedom, identity, will. She stood up slowly, shaking but strong. "No," she said, her voice like steel wrapped in silk. "I don't belong to you." Kale frowned, raising the remote again. But this time, it sparked and died in his hand. Zira lifted her arm, and the implant glowed like a small star. "I changed it," she whispered, "with his help. I rewrote it." Kyle backed away as if she were a bomb. You're unstable." "No," Zira said, stepping forward. "I'm finally stable. Because someone chose me, not as property but as a person, with one last step." She reached out and placed her hand on Kale's chest. A flash of energy burst from her fingers, throwing him back across the floor. The soldiers looked stunned, unsure if they should fight or flee. Jaren raised his weapon and aimed. "Your Admiral is done," he said. "Leave. And don't come back." One by one, the guards dropped their rifles and turned away. Only Kale remained, gasping, too weak to rise. Zira stood over him. "I folded every cloth you gave me," she said. Voice steady, "But no one ever folded me." Then she turned, walked back to Jaren and took his hand. "I'm ready to go home now. They didn't run this time." They walked through the empty city streets. Together, step by step. No more hiding, no more fear. Weeks later, they found a small place near the green side of the city. Zira started a tiny laundry shop, not out of fear, but choice. She folded clothes, yes, but now people paid her with respect. Not chains. Jaren helped repair old tech, fixed heaters and vents together. They built something that wasn't just survival. It was life. One evening, as Zira folded his shirt, she smiled and said, "You know, I'd still fold your laundry even if you had 10 shirts a day." He laughed and hugged her. "And I'd still protect you even if the galaxy tried to take you again." Because in a galaxy full of stars and silence, he had chosen her and she had chosen him. Not with credits, not with commands, but with something stronger than all of that. With love,